At the Shaw Brothers Studios backlot in Hong Kong in the autumn of 1992, on the afternoon of October 17th, the temperature hung at 102 degrees. The soundstage they had rented for the afternoon held 17 people. Producers, cinematographers, 2 stunt coordinators, and in the corner, watching the light move across the polished floor, Jet Li. He wore a charcoal t-shirt with no collar and trousers that had seen too many takes already that day. He was 30 years old. He had won the Wushu Championships 5 consecutive times as a teenager. He had studied under Master Yu Chenghui, the sword master who trained the Beijing Opera. His film work had begun to turn heads in the festival circuit. He stood with his weight distributed evenly, a man accustomed to being studied. Jackie Chan arrived at 2:45. He was 38 years old. He stood 5'7.5". He had been making films for 16 years. He had survived falls that would have ended other careers. He had been beaten by police once, knocked unconscious by criminals once, burned by gasoline once. His filmography crossed 6 countries. In that room of 17 people, only Jet Li did not turn when Jackie walked through the door. The thing that would happen next lasted approximately 6 seconds. In front of those 17 witnesses, it would consume 7 minutes of narration. The story that followed would travel from that soundstage through dojos and film festivals and underground message boards for 3 decades. It would change the way Jet Li was perceived in North America. It would reach a specific silence into Jackie Chan's understanding of his own place in the hierarchy of martial artists. Nobody in that backlot that afternoon understood they were about to witness a boundary being drawn. The afternoon began with the 2 men being introduced by the producer as a courtesy. They had been scheduled to film separate sequences in the same studio, a scheduling coincidence that the producer imagined would interest them both. Jackie extended his hand. He was the established star, the man whose name carried Chinese cinema into multiplexes across Southeast Asia. Jet Li took the hand. He was the Beijing Olympic Committee's hand-picked representative of Chinese martial mastery. Neither man spoke. That was the first thing the witnesses would remember. The producer suggested they watch each other work. This was a normal gesture in those studios, a way to honor both artists. Jackie agreed. He moved to the mat. What Jackie Chan demonstrated that afternoon was what 17 years of continuous film work had taught him. His style was economical. It was built for the camera. He held positions longer than necessary, letting the light find the geometry of the position. He turned his body to expose the intended impact of every technique. He was, in essence, performing the martial art of fighting. He was showing. He was not, in the strict sense, fighting. Jackie worked with 2 stunt coordinators for 12 minutes. He demonstrated a sequence from an upcoming film, high kicks, throws with the wrist turned at a specific angle to receive a camera's attention, a roll across his back that positioned him toward the light. He was magnificently controlled. He was also, objectively speaking, performing at perhaps 70% of his actual capability. The film demanded precision and readability. Film fighting and functional fighting are not the same language. When he finished, there was applause. The light on the backlot had shifted. It was now 3:15. The temperature had dropped 2 degrees. The producer turned to Jet Li. He asked if he would like to show what he was working on. Jet Li had not been asked to perform. He had been brought to the studio to film sequences, alone, without a partner, but he stood. He removed his shirt. The room observed the specific tension in the musculature across his shoulders and arms. The geometry of a body trained in martial arts from the age of 6. What Jet Li demonstrated was what the Beijing Wushu Academy had embedded into his nervous system. The forms came from philosophy. Each movement carried the weight distribution of armies. Each position was not a pose but a state of balance so complete that it could generate power in any direction instantaneously. There was no performance in what Jet Li did. There was only function. He moved through space as if the space itself had been designed to accommodate the trajectory of his body. Every rotation was mathematical. Every stance was an answer to an invisible question. He worked for 4 minutes. He did not repeat himself. When he finished, he stood still. There was no applause. What the witnesses remember is the specific silence. One of the cinematographers would later describe it as a silence that was not the absence of sound but the presence of a kind of collective recalibration. Jackie Chan stood near the north wall. His face showed nothing. but his shoulders had risen approximately 1 inch. The producer spoke first. He said, "Remarkable, that was when Jackie Chan made the decision that would define this story." He walked toward the mat. He said in Cantonese that he would like to run a drill with Jet Li. If Jet Li was willing. There was no aggression in his voice. There was something else. There was the sound of a man recognizing, in that moment, that he did not know how to evaluate what he had just witnessed. The test he was about to propose was framed as a technical exchange. It was not. Jet Li stood at the center of the mat. He did not step back. He did not ready himself. He waited. This was the specific gesture that everyone would remember afterward. He simply waited with his arms at his sides, as though Jackie had already proposed something and Jet Li had already decided on his response. Jackie came forward. He moved at approximately 70% speed. A controlled pace, a pace meant to be educational. This was his first attempt. He threw a combination from his right side, a punch followed by a spinning back fist. A sequence he had trained 10,000 times. It was executed with technical perfection. It had no range. Jet Li had not moved. The punches passed in the space where Jet Li's head and shoulders were, at the specific moment before they passed to become empty air, 6 inches from contact. Jackie had read Jet Li's prediction of his movement, and Jet Li had read Jackie's reading, and had moved the space between them infinitesimally. Jackie reset. He came again. This time he varied the approach. He used his legs. A knee strike with a feint from his left hand. The sequence was faster, perhaps 80% speed. It was still a training rhythm. Again, Jet Li did not step back. Again, the techniques arrived at coordinates where Jet Li was not. The space between them maintained itself at a distance that seemed to compress and expand with each attempted contact. A stunt coordinator named David Wong, standing against the north wall with his weight on his left leg, his hands folded across his stomach, understood what was happening. He had trained with both men at different stages of their careers. He understood that what he was witnessing was not a fight but a negotiation about distance. The distance was the subject. The bodies were punctuation. Jet Li was reading the velocity of Jackie's approach and positioning himself in the negative space, the place where the attack was not going to arrive. This required not predicting but calculating. This required not reacting but existing in a state of constant adjustment. Jackie came a third time. He was perhaps 90% now. He used combinations that he had developed over years of stunt work. Left side, right side. A spinning kick. He put his entire body into the approach. He was no longer running a drill. He was no longer performing for the room. He was testing something about himself against something about this man. And for the second time since he began fighting in films, Jackie Chan experienced the sensation of his best technique arriving at empty space. The realization that struck him, and which he would carry for the rest of his career, was this: he did not know where he would arrive either. Jet Li was moving him, not with contact, with the absolute clarity of his positioning. He was moving Jackie into attacking empty coordinates. Jet Li's response came not as a strike, but as a gesture. He raised his hand, gently, palm outward, at the exact moment Jackie's final kick completed. The hand stopped 1 inch from Jackie's face. It was not a block. It was an instruction. The hand did not press. It held. It communicated something in that hold that all 17 people in the room understood in different ways. Jackie Chan stood still. His breathing was measured. The sweat on his face caught the afternoon light. Jet Li lowered his hand. He did not look away from Jackie. This was the moment when Jet Li said something that only Jackie would hear. The witnesses would spend decades trying to reconstruct what words had passed between them. Some believed it was an offer of instruction. Some believed it was a statement about hierarchy. The only certainty was that Jackie's face changed. His shoulders dropped. He nodded. Once, a clear, visible choice. Jackie turned to the producer. He said in a voice that carried no emotion and much weight that he would like to learn from Jet Li's form. He asked if Jet Li had time that evening. He asked publicly, in front of all 17 witnesses. He was making a choice that could have been framed as defeat but instead framed itself as education. This was his gift. This was the moment that separated Jackie Chan from the men who could not accept what had just been shown to them. The stunt coordinator David Wong moved toward Jet Li. He placed his hand on Jet Li's shoulder. This was not an aggressive gesture. This was the touch of a man who needed to confirm something. The touch said, "You were real. You moved the way you moved, and it was real, and you are real." What happened after that afternoon is the ripple. The story moved through martial arts communities in ways that no documented video could have traveled it. This was before the internet existed in the form we know it. The story traveled orally. It traveled through letters. It traveled through the specific gravity of what 17 people told 17 other people they had witnessed. The story changed as it moved. In some versions, the confrontation lasted 30 seconds. In others, 3 minutes. In some versions, Jackie Chan fell. In others, he nearly defeated Jet Li through sheer will. What the story carried, underneath all mutation, was this: 2 different types of martial artistry had been held up to the light in the same afternoon and found to be different not in excellence but in kind. Jackie Chan, in the years that followed, began to speak differently about martial arts in interviews. He spoke about efficiency and economy. He spoke about the difference between technique and philosophy. He began to incorporate elements of traditional wushu into his films in ways he had not before. He never said the name Jet Li in these interviews. He did not need to. People who had heard the story understood. Jet Li moved to the United States. He began to study English. He began to work in American films, bringing something of what the witnesses had seen in that backlot into the language of Hollywood action cinema. He was offered roles that would make him one of the most recognizable martial artists of his generation. He carried, internally, the specific knowledge that had passed between him and Jackie Chan in that moment when the hand was raised. He never publicly discussed what had been said. Years later in 1996, Jackie Chan was interviewed for a magazine. He was asked about the different martial arts traditions in China. He said this: "I have learned that fighting is not one thing. A man can be trained his entire life in one way of moving, and it is true and real and beautiful. Another man can be trained in a different way of moving, and it is also true and real and beautiful. The difference between them is not a hierarchy, it is an alphabet. Different letters, same language. The mistake is thinking that one alphabet can read all stories." He was asked if he had learned this from someone specific. He said, "From several sources, mostly from watching a man stand still." The producer who was present in that room in 1992 is deceased now. But before he died, he told the story to his granddaughter. He told her that what he had witnessed was the moment when 2 versions of martial mastery were held up to the light at the same instant. And the light passed through both in different ways. He told her that both men walked out of that backlot with their understanding of themselves changed. The one who stood still had learned that his quiet power needed no affirmation from outside sources. The one who moved had learned something larger. He had learned that excellence is not a single measure. It is a landscape with many peaks, and a man can spend a lifetime on one peak and never know the view from another. The specific lesson that travels forward from that afternoon is this: respect is not given to the man who defeats others. Respect is given to the man who recognizes something larger than himself and chooses education over pride. Jackie Chan chose this. This choice, more than any fight, was what changed the landscape of martial cinema in the years that followed. What you have just heard is not a recording. It is a story that 17 people carried out of a backlot in Hong Kong in October of 1992. It has traveled through 3 decades and 4 continents. It has been told in different languages. It has been embellished and stripped down and rebuilt according to the understanding of whoever was telling it. But underneath all of that, the core remains unchanged. In a room with 17 people, 2 men understood something about the boundaries of their own mastery. One of them was humble enough to say so. That humility is what the story carries forward. If you want to understand what happened next in the careers of both these men, subscribe to this channel and comment below where you are watching from. Next week, we will discuss the one encounter that changed Jet Li's understanding of his place in American cinema. It involved a different challenge. It involved a different kind of recognition. Stay till then.